WTIM.
It's a WTIM morning show. I'm Avery Cooper, your host. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. Find the streams on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com, Facebook, or on YouTube at WTIM TV. Briefly, before we get started in the Christian County area, wanted to let everyone know that area emergency services have suspended the tornado test alarm for today in case of actual severe weather. So if you hear severe weather today, it is actually severe weather. It's not the tornado test alarm. It is actually severe weather at some point today. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, let's get into the WTIM morning show interview. I have Central Illinois Food Bank co-coordinator Amy Hagan in studio. Great to have you here, Amy.
Thanks, Avery.
And I also have some special guests. Let's start off to the left. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Peggy Molotores, and I'm the executive director at Central Illinois Food Bank, and just very happy to be here.
It's great to have the executive director of the Central Illinois Food Bank in studio right now. Also off to the right, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Brooke. I'm the new public relations manager for the food bank.
Brooke, what's your last name?
Dunn.
Brooke Dunn, that's right. All right, so really, I'm just kind of a little bit starstruck. I haven't had the director in studio before. Tell me a little bit about your background and how long you've been with the Central Illinois Food Bank.
Well, I started the food bank 21 years ago, so I've been there for a hot minute. And actually, Amy and I have worked together at every not-for-profit that I've worked at in the area. I started out at Big Brothers Big Sisters a million years ago, then went to Girl Scouts, and then made the move to the food bank, and just really been amazed by the changes we've seen over the last 21 years. We've quadrupled the amount of pounds that we get out to the community. We've really developed a lot of relationships, and it's been fantastic.
And off to the right, let's introduce Brooke. Tell me a little bit about your background. I understand you were new to the role as public relations manager.
Yes, so I do have a small history with nonprofits in the area. When I was working at Spark, which is a nonprofit that works for people with disabilities, but I really have a passion for communications, and so I really wanted to get into that. So I wanted to find a nonprofit in the area that could kind of fulfill the need for, the public relations side of things.
What about nonprofits do you enjoy working with, and what about the Central Illinois Food Bank made that a good fit for you?
Yeah, so I actually have a little political background too, and something that I really cared about was finding nonprofits that were kind of nonpartisan, because something that I realized is, we can get caught up in, this side or the other side, but something I just wanted to help people, and finding that middle ground I thought was really important to me. And what better than that than the food bank?
Hunger is, after all, nonpartisan, doesn't have a side. It affects everybody. All right, Amy, how have you been over the past month or so?
Oh, Avery, just missing you.
I'm flattered.
Well, thank you. No, we have been rocking and rolling over at the food pantry locally. We had a food drive with our Boy Scout troops here in this community. That was on March the 25th. They generously dropped off a load of non-perishable food items to us and some cash donations, and very pleased to report to the community today that they contributed 1,677 pounds this year with their local food drive that they did for us. They did it a little bit differently this year in the fact that they dropped bags to individual residences, and then they also collected food at the local CVS. So they weren't real sure how that was going to work out, but I guess there were some logistics changes from the council office, and they had to be agile. And that's what they came up with. And we certainly appreciate their efforts in that regard.
Brooke, when you hear over 1,600 pounds of food, what's your reaction?
I mean, I never even considered giving in terms of pounds. I mean, it's mind blowing. I can't even fathom, what that looks like. And I'm starting to now, but just like seeing the amount of food that we're able to provide, for anyone, for it's really mind-blowing.
And it all goes back to the mission for the Central Illinois Food Bank and the Taylorville Food Pantry, of course. Pam, maybe you'll provide me a little bit of background. What does the Central Illinois Food Bank hope to achieve?
Well, it's very simple. And we serve 21 counties. We have an incredible network of partners, pantries, soup kitchens, residential programs, after school programs. We also work with schools and public health facilities. And it's really simple. First, we want to feed our neighbors. And, we never know when we might be the one or someone that we know is the one. And then secondarily, we want to make sure that we are providing healthy food, nutritious food. So we just adopted a nutrition policy, as I'm sure one of the other staff let you know, last summer. And we continue to work on trying to bring in the healthiest product we can. And then the third thing that we're really starting to get involved in is the education base. What is nutrition? How do we work with the University of Illinois Extension Office? How do we work with other dietitians? How do we use our kitchen carts to so we're not only providing food, but we're also teaching people about food and exposing people to foods that they may not have been exposed to in the past.
That sounds invaluable as well. I want to know a little bit more about some of the community events that maybe you have coming on, especially in terms of food distributions, if you have any that are coming up in the area in the next couple of weeks or so from the Central Illinois Food Bank standpoint.
At this point, we do not have any coming up. We really have moved away or beginning to move away from a COVID operation back to a more I don't want to say pre-COVID because there is no pre-COVID anymore. There's no normal, but we're really relying on our partners who really are the folks that are in the local community, really have been doing the work for a lot of years. And so we are moving back toward being more the supplement. Amy needs oranges, we get her oranges. And so when we're doing distributions, typically if we're doing those, they are very specific to kids organizations or to a special grant that we had that we're going into a community and working with a community that has a very high percentage of folks that are underserved or there are access issues.
Go ahead.
Well,
You
no,
look
I
like you had a
just
thought.
I just wanted to touch Avery on the fact that, Pam had mentioned the partnership with extension and nutrition and education and the importance of that, and just kind of bring it home on a local level. Over the last month and a half, we've been really blessed to have partnership with University of Illinois Extension to come into our local pantry, and they're providing some healthy food recipes and doing some tastings and things with our patrons on Tuesday morning. So that's been really great. And then we also have a partnership that just launched last week with an agency that's, I'm going to mischaracterize it, but it's related to the Internal Revenue Service. And they were providing some tax advice and stuff to our patrons as well. So to Pam's point about the power of partnership, we're doing that locally as well.
I want to talk a little bit more about all the things the Central Illinois Food Bank and Taylorville Food Pantry are doing. You just heard from co-coordinator Amy Hagan of the Taylorville Food Pantry. She's here with Executive Director of the Central Illinois Food Bank, Pam Molatoris, and Public Relations Manager Brooke Dunn here on the WTIM Morning Show. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first.
WTIM. Your information station, WTIM.
It's a WTIM morning show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. I have Executive Director of the Central Illinois Food Bank, Pam Molitoris, along with Public Relations Manager Brooke Dunn, and Co-Coordinator of the Taylorville Food Pantry, Amy Hagan, in studio. It's great to have everyone in here to talk about food insecurity and the state of how it's going in Central Illinois and in Christian County and Taylorville. And before going to break, we talked a little bit about partnerships and relationships between Central Illinois Food Bank and its many agencies and partners. One of those partners, obviously, Taylorville Food Pantry. From a local perspective, Amy, how does having Central Illinois Food Bank at your back aid what Taylorville Food Pantry wants to do?
Well, for those who've been listening for a while, they recognize the fact that we do have that interrelationship. The Taylorville Food Pantry is one of over 200 food agencies that the Central Illinois Food Bank supports. And basically, to your question, we are a USDA commodity site, which means that we're sourcing food through the USDA program, and in essence, sourcing food that's, nutritious and food that's shelf stable and food that we wouldn't be able to procure without their help in being the conduit for the USDA program. In addition to that, they provide us with guidelines, operating guidelines that we adhere to insofar as our service area and who we serve, and that, we don't discriminate, that we are a servant to all as long as those individuals meet the income guidelines that are set forth. And so there's a playbook there, right? And then to Pam's point about nutrition and nutritious food and education, I mean, when the food bank has an initiative like that, we, as one of their agency partners, we adopt those programs and look to, support them through our local community. Meaning, in other words, if they want to promote nutritious food through a red, yellow, green program, then we are ordering as much of that fresh produce that we can handle into our food pantry. And we are providing that to our patrons, making it amply available, and then providing them with suggestions as to how to prepare those items in their own home kitchens. So we're very, very proud of that partnership, and we wouldn't be where we are as an agency without it, quite honestly.
Brooke, briefly here, I've heard both Pam and Amy allude to it a little bit. Maybe you can fill in the gaps on what that red, yellow, green policy is, if you wouldn't mind.
I am not super familiar with all of the specifics, but I have learned a lot from Pam on kind of the general idea of but Pam, if you want to.
I'll take over for a moment. And in fairness to Brooke, she's on week 2 or week 3 here, so she hasn't learned everything yet.
I thought I'd give her a chance.
Well, that was your little test, wasn't it?
Didn't mean it to be, but
oh no, I think it's good. It's always good when you put somebody on a hot seat. It always makes you grow. But what we operate off of the healthy eating research guidelines, and they are set up to look at saturated fat, sodium, added sugars, and I might be missing one, but that's all right. And so what we do is the food that comes from the ground, tends to be your healthiest food, and not necessarily from the ground, but then it's raw form. So it tends to have less sodium, less sugars, and so those are your green foods. So the green is go, right? And so in all of our grants, we buy at least 50% green. Yellow are those foods that maybe are processed a little bit, or maybe they have a little more sodium or a little more sugar, and you have to be a little careful, but yeah, we're okay to eat those, right? And then red, and my favorite joke is, because I keep Rice Krispie treats in my office sometime, red are those treats. Those things might be higher in sugar, higher in fat, higher in sodium, but sometimes it just tastes good. And so those are the things that we want to eat less, want to eat rarely. But what it comes down to is there is no food that is inherently good or bad. It's the proportions of what we eat that are important, because we are not going to be the nutrition police. Our job is to provide access. And it is extremely important, I know, to Amy, it's extremely important to Brooke and I and the food bank, that this is about people making their own choices, not about us making choices for them.
I think a lot of that comes down to what it kind of summarize it into, how dense the calorie amounts are in each food, which we don't have enough time to get into, but that's kind of something you can do for homework for yourself, you the listener at home. Amy, we're running out of time here, but we are also coming up on the end of the school year. I know this is a big time of year for you. How is the Taylorville Food Pantry preparing or doing for the end of the school year?
So our numbers are, up there, which you would expect because SNAP benefits got cut as of March the 1st. We're seeing a lot of people for the first time, a lot of people in a long time. What the end of school year means is, a lot of folks, kids at home, people are going to have food needs that they don't currently have because the school is providing them. Providing for those children. And so please remember your local food pantry as summer comes about, as school is out, and take up those local food drive initiatives. Come by, volunteer in your summer hours, and we'd love for you to remember us.
I will always remember you, Amy, as well as Public Relations Manager Brooke Dunn. I'm sure we'll talk to you a lot more in the coming weeks and months.
Yes.
It's really good to get to know you a little bit. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
And also good to get to know the Executive Director, Pam Molina-Torres. I really appreciate it. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. You'll find the streams at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com's Facebook or on YouTube at WTIM TV. Also, another, just quick before we go, if you hear the severe weather siren, it is actually severe weather. There is no test for the first Tuesday of the month for the tornado test. If you hear sirens, get to cover for today, for Tuesday. It's the WTIM Morning Show.
WTIM.